Hello everyone, and welcome back to Torchlight 2. In case I forgot last time, this is Torchlight 2 obviously. I keep having the feeling that I said Torchlight without adding the 2. I mean, you can see it's the second game, but yeah, you get my point. We're in Virax's tower. Again, I don't know how they want you to pronounce that, and I don't know how to make this lever come up. No idea. Blue chest. Containing a mysterious great hammer. Hey, just die. Hailstorm is very nice in terms of what it can hit, but sometimes it's a little weird on what it can hit. So this is a fairly large dungeon, but I actually liked... I always liked it, and it has that nice little sort of... It's not really a feature, it's just... Throughout all of the game, you go through dungeons. As long as it's not in the overworld, of course, but it's always a cave of some kind, or an actual dungeon, something. You go down, basically, and just for fun, essentially. In this one, they start you at the bottom, and you have to go up because it's a tower. It makes sense, but it's just I like that little thing. It's actually when we had to program a game for university, basically to get some actual programming practice in. I think that's why they wanted us to do it. We also decided it was meant to be a dungeon crawler, basically something very similar to this, except obviously not as extensive. I mean, you know, students' first game programming, you're not going to start with anything as large as this. It was just more meant to be a practice of programming techniques and, you know, getting to grips with the language, which sadly we had to use Java, which is terrible. But anyway, it was meant to be a dungeon crawler as well, but just for a twist, the way we'd made it, and ours was 2D, so we didn't use 3D graphics of any kind. It was sprite based, a lot easier to program, I can tell you that much. Advantage being that it ran at 60 FPS consistently. It actually ran at more than 60 because all the rendering and such was done by the processor, but even though we did that, it was still ridiculously fast, so that tells you something about the simplicity of the games that we made. But anyway, we also decided that, you know, instead of having a town and then you go down the dungeon as you normally would in a dungeon crawler, we decided, you know, just as a backstory, it was an encampment at the very bottom of the dungeon. So there was the skeleton of some big dragon, I think we used, lying there. And essentially you, it was sort of... I mean, we never intended to make anything more from it. But the way it was set up was such that essentially it played 200 years after a different game, basically. A game that doesn't exist. So it's just... The colony, the encampment down there, was basically, it consisted of the survivors of, or rather the descendants of the initial group of adventurers that went down there when that dungeon was filled with evil. And the initial group killed that big dragon, so essentially from that leftover dark magic and such, the survivors or the descendants of those adventurers, because they couldn't get back up again or didn't want to or whatever, we weren't clear on that. But essentially their descendants had just started living down there because they saw no reason to go up again, or it was, I don't know, too long of a climb, 50 levels down, whatever. So yeah, the story of that game that we actually made was then that food reserves had run out, and obviously there wasn't much farming down there. All you could really grow was kind of mushroom, and you know, people were complaining they didn't like the mushrooms, which was the only thing that grew down there because, well, it's a dark cave, you know. We were inspired by Minecraft in that mushrooms wouldn't need light to grow, right? I mean, yeah, fair enough. So, yeah, basically we were sent out as an expedition to just get new food, just something that would grow down there. And no, actually, the water supply was the problem. People didn't like the mushrooms, and that was sort of a side motivation for one of the characters that you could choose. But actually, people couldn't drink the water anymore. That was the problem, the main problem. Because the water, obviously, sort of dripping down from the surface, had become poisoned, corrupted, whatever. Yeah, it was a dungeon crawler with a fairly boring story, but anyway, the point is, you were down at the very bottom of the dungeon and had to fight your way up to find out why the corruption was sort of dripping down, instead of, you know, the generally reversed situation where you're at the very top and there's corruption down in the bottom of the dungeon and you want to find out why. And we just, I don't know, we found that quite hilarious for some reason. And so essentially, you'd start at the very bottom, and because it's so close to where that encampment of the survivors or the descendants was, I don't know why I keep calling them survivors. They were, I don't know, they were just the descendants of the old adventure group, basically. Oh, tells her of the storm. Well, you're useless. He enchants items with electricity, which is pointless. There's some situations where you want ice on weapons. I think for certain berserker builds you want ice. Just so that it has a chance to freeze, which you can then take advantage of. And we've been through this type of room before, you know, the levers in these sort of alcoves around the sides. So I'm just going to sort of dash through this. And you actually do need to do this. It's not optional, because you need to open the center to be able to open the path further down the dungeon. Or up in this case. But yeah, it actually got us some nice bonus points for the final project, that we'd sort of done this little twist, even though it wasn't, as you can imagine, really the only thing we did was, instead of saying, you know, stair going down, it said stair going up when you went to the next level. That was really all we did, and sort of that little bit of backstory, which, I don't know, I just like the idea of, you know, the adventurers from back then decided to just stay down here because, you know, they'd gone down 50 levels, and up there in the old encampment, all that was there was some sort of sleazy merchant and the gambling guy who never gave you good stuff. So they all just decided, you know what, there's food down here, we've got all the good stuff, we've killed the big beast and we've got its weapons, and why go back up? You know, let's just make families down here. It was a fun little thing. And then, of course, the big evil guy was now the old mayor of the town, who sort of, in order to become immortal, had sacrificed his humanity, blah de blah de blah. Not really anything novel or interesting, but it's, I don't know, it didn't go too far away from the general genre, which is, it's always risky if you go too far away from it. But it's still, just change it up a little bit to, you know, just as a premise, make it a little more fun. And this is now floor 4, so it makes it currently the longest dungeon we've ever been in. I believe the final dungeon will be 7 floors, and I don't believe this tower is as high. I think it has 5 or 6 floors. So, yeah. And again, I'm running past a fair amount of enemies, just because I don't particularly find the combat terribly enjoyable, and I think neither do you. It's probably more interesting to see the boss fights and, you know, get some of the story in and see the shinies drop. I'm not certain if just, you know, fighting these random trash mobs is particularly interesting. And if it is, I have always done LPs of other games of the series and other games of the genre in which I actually do a bunch of killing trash mobs. It somewhat depends on the game whether or not killing the trash is really required or useful. I mean, in a game like Diablo 3, for example, killing the trash is actually, at least in my case, what gets you the best items. Most of my really good stuff comes from trash mobs. Just because there's so much more trash than actual enemies that... Oh, I think we're at the top. That while it's true that, you know, the bosses have higher drop rates on the stuff, you just end up killing so much more trash that that tends to be what gets... At least that tends to be what used to get me. It's been a while since I've actually done any real, you know, statistical analysis of loot and such, so I don't know if it's still the case, but it just used to be that statistically most of my legendaries would come from random trash mobs, and only a fairly small amount would come from actual bosses or champions or elite mobs and all that. And up here, by the way, you have to find a bunch of these Varkalin before the boss actually properly lands. There he is, Lyrax. Ta-da! And there he's dead. Getting a mysterious ring. And the Eye of the Dragon. And, of course, his Heartfire, which... is what we needed for the quest. Let's check the Great Hammer I got. Well, it's junk. And the ring, Inferno. Not good, not good. And my inventory is actually full. The Heartfire is actually... oh, it's a socketable. Not a good one, but it is. And the Eye of the Dragon... also not a good socketable. So, yeah, we didn't need the Heartfire for the quest, it just became a socketable item for us. And I think we can now head to the Sundered Battlefield, to my old portal. Funnily enough, in this game they've changed it up a little bit so that the portal doesn't go away after you've used it, basically. In Torchlight 1, when you put down a portal in the dungeon, you went through it and you went back, the portal was then gone. You could only use it for one travel to town and back, basically. In this game it stays open until you put down a new portal. So if you wanted, for example, to farm the certain boss, I think I used to do this with General Grell, when I was still playing hardcore, you would put down a portal in his boss room, and every, I don't know, maybe half hour of game time or so, he respawns just by himself. So if you haven't been to an area for long enough, it resets. So just every now and then while playing I would go to my portal, and obviously that meant I couldn't use the waypoint portal for anything else, but that was really okay, I didn't need it. And I would spawn back in his boss room and he would have respawned. So I would then just kill him again. He drops a socketable, his eye, I believe, which gives 3% reduction in damage. It's somewhat a weaker version of the Skull of Limoeni, which that gives 5%. But the advantage is that the Grell Eye thing is a lot easier to farm. It drops far more consistently. I don't believe it's a 100% drop chance, but definitely fairly high. Really good chance to get it. Also, this section introduces a new gameplay thing. You can't get through here. And not quite sure if we get the full extent of it, but essentially... no, actually it's not what I meant. It's not what I... well, no, what they've added here is not what I was thinking of. Okay, I'm teleporting. I said I didn't want to do that, right? So this is just, you know, normal pull the lever so the door opens, so that's nothing new. So, I mean, it used to look different. This is what I actually meant, the valves. Again, they're very similar to, you know, push the suicide bots. They're very similar to push the lever and the door opens, but instead you sort of have these steam valves which block your path, and, well, these steam jets, outputs, whatever. And you have to close them to be able to progress. Now I will just go through here because there's not much to be gained from killing all these guys. As I've said, trash loot mobs aren't so relevant in this game. I think the legendaries that I've gotten so far actually came from trash mobs, but that's more random chance than anything else. There's no reason why trash mobs would give better drops in this game. And most bosses have guaranteed drops of uniques and increased chances of legendaries. So, especially for farming uniques, what I used to do was just go kill the final boss of the game. Try not to spoil his name. But yeah, just kill the final boss of the game a few times. And the War Titan's actually quite powerful, so have to be careful. I am a glass cannon on this character, so...
My pack is full.
Oh, my pack is full. Well then. Dear pet, you are now going to have to carry all my set pieces. And if I send you to town accidentally, I will be a bit disappointed. Don't know why I'm keeping the gold sword, really. Don't want that. I mean, it's nice. I like the Easter egg that they put in, but it's... yeah, it's not particularly good. You can also get diamond and stone and wooden swords, and some of them are better than others. Anyway, we can use this to recharge the power source.
Completed the quest.
And then return to town. And we can hand in the power source to... And that was, by the way, the final boss of Act 3. Get a piece of the Inquisitor set.
We're nearly there, my... You have a new...
The good thing about the Inquisitor set is at 2 pieces you get 1% mana stolen. And as I've explained, 1% mana stolen really is actually... it's quite good. It's not bad. And you only need 2 pieces of that set to get that bonus, which is nice because for other pieces you need 3 or 4. For other sets you need 3 or 4 pieces. Which means you can't use other pieces, and the only reason you'd want the Inquisitor set is for that mana stolen thing. The other effects of it are useless. And so that way you just have to sacrifice 2 equipment slots to get that effect, instead of maybe 3 or 4 for another set. Okay, what do we have here? Wow, this is a 4000 model. These are quite old. This one appears to have a lot of work done to it. Not sure why it's in pieces. Why don't we find out? Let me just put these together for you and we'll see what it has to say for itself. Ta-da! We have found all the robot pieces. And this is Trillbot 4000! In case you didn't see or play Torchlight 1. There was an NPC in the town of Torchlight, which was the central hub of Torchlight 1. It wasn't, it didn't have multiple towns, it only had the one town called Torchlight, hence the name. And in that town there was this NPC called Trillbot 4000. He essentially was a really, really bad singer, a bad bard, and he kept telling you, you know, to gain success and fame, he wanted to hear your stories of killing certain bosses. And essentially what it was is he would tell you to go down to level 17 or whatever of the dungeon and kill a certain named boss. basically what it did was you got the quest and it made sure that on the relevant level, the relevant boss was generated and you could kill it and go back and it would give you some reward and some money and some fame. Anyway, he was constantly telling you to go kill bosses and constantly making really bad songs out of it, essentially. I mean, he didn't actually make songs, only... Anyway, he was a very famous NPC from the first game, and this is just a little sort of rollback, throwback to that first game. Just fun. And he, I am the great Bard Trill. You've heard of me, of course. My talent is known throughout all of Veras. From Torchlight to Redhaven, they sing of my songs. Torchlight, did something happen there? I feel a bit... never mind. I recognize this place. The Spider's Call, the Sisters 3, the old trunk yawning wide. Through ancient halls, dark ancestry, they met their fates inside. An apt verse, you'll agree. I wrote it myself, of course. Yes, and as you can see, as reward, I get... it's not guaranteed set pieces, as I may have said before, it's guaranteed uniques. I actually really like Sunglaze Needles, by the way. So, we have gotten the Three Sisters quest, and we have to go to the battlefield for those. I think this might be a little closer. And as I have already said before, I'm not going to change up the character for the final act of the game. In case there's interest, I might be doing bonus episodes with a different character. You know, if you want to see more of this game, you know, from time to time, I might just do a stream or something like that. Again, depending on feedback and such, which I don't get feedback so far. Let's put that right there. And enter the Three Sisters area. But yeah, I would have to play another character, and the only reasonable character I could use would be, well, the one that I would have to use would be an engineer, because I haven't used an engineer yet. And I would rather just, you know, get this playthrough done, instead of preparing yet another character. I think I've shown a decent variety, and if I've not shown everything, that just means there's a bit of an incentive for you to play it for yourself. And this is Mariška, the sister of corruption, one of the Three Sisters. And we have to defeat all three to finish the quest. It's not going to be as difficult as it's going to be on your first playthrough. It's actually not an easy quest if you come here at the sort of appropriate level and gear in your first playthrough. These bosses are no joke. I mean, they're not impossible, not really difficult, but you might actually die here a few times. Depending on, of course, your gear. This is the Sister of Embers. I believe she's fire elemental. And then... oh, didn't think that teleport would work. I think the final sister is down here. It's not. I hate this dungeon. Oh, well. Problem is, the last sister always takes me ages to find. Guess I don't know what's required to make her spawn. Maybe it's down here? Yeah, I think so. For some reason I always have trouble finding the final sister. It shouldn't be difficult at all. Yeah. There we go. Now you might be surprised, because I didn't actually get any loot from those. Seems a little simple, right? Well, we're not technically done yet. You know, I keep starting to use the teleport thing, because that's totally what you have to do. And incidentally, I don't actually miss the third sister, I miss this teleporter opening. Yeah, I don't actually know if it's annoying if I use the teleport or not, so I keep starting to use it because, you know, instinct and such. And then I think, oh wait, I wasn't going to do that, and then I stopped doing it. So now we have to fight slightly buffed versions of all three of them simultaneously, which doesn't help. Okay, we got two of their eyes, the Eye of Verona and the Eye of Marishka. I believe they all have Marishka's brooch as well. I believe they all have their own eye socketable thing they can drop. The Eye of Verona, bonus to focus and a chance to cast Firestorm. That's not terrible. The Eye of Marishka, dexterity and chance to raise Shadowling. A piece of the Harbinger. I would say Harbinger, but meh. Set. It's not a bad set at all. Especially the 10 pieces bonus to crit damage is very nice. And a necklace, which... blah. Okay, I'm just going to return to town now. Because I think that should be all the side quests and side dungeons in this playthrough dealt with. I don't believe there's very much else to do. I'll probably go to the Imperial camp. There you go. The wicked 3 dark powers found and ruled a twisted land, but I could see one honor bound and victory was at hand. Yeah, that was the kind of singing, or rhyming rather, that he used to do in the first game all the time. I could get a Clockwork Soloret, a Sodalis Helm, or the Sunglazed Needle. For some reason I love that Sunglazed Needle, so I'm using that. It's actually a good place to stop, so next time I can start with the final dungeon. So yeah, I'll do that on the same character as I've explained, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!